All right, so this is going to be a review of Rebel Moon Part 1. What is A Child of Fire? I didn't even know that it had that little subtitle. I thought it was just Rebel Moon Part 1. It's the newest Zack Snyder movie on Netflix that desperately wants to be Star Wars and a bunch of other movies. This is not getting good reviews by pretty much anyone. I don't think anybody likes this other than, I guess, really diehard Snyder people. Uh, and I don't like it either. I think this is not good at all. I did not like this at all. It took me multiple tries to get through this thing. There's this settlement, this farm village, and the main character is there, Cora, played by Sophia Boutella, who clearly has some kind of backstory that is kind of alluded to. She says she's a child of war. She crash landed on a spaceship. There's something going on there, but you got to wait for the full backstory, the flashbacks and stuff. But she's there with those villagers and everything. A battleship or spaceship or whatever by the Mother World. I guess they're the ones like fully running this galaxy and all that. This oppressive force. They come to the village immediately. She's scared by it. Clearly, there's some backstory there that she has ties to the Mother World, and they come down and they demand their harvest and things like that. The leader of the settlement, he doesn't want to give him anything, but then this other guy, Gunner, played by Mikhail Hausman, he wants to give them the grain because he's also looking out for the villagers. They're both looking out for the villagers in a different way, but he doesn't want to give them the grain or whatever. The leader of this settlement gets killed by the main villain in this, Admiral Noble, played by Ed Skrein. And they leave, and the idea is they're going to come back for all of their harvest and all that. And pretty much the villagers are going to starve because it's pretty much all of their harvest that they want. I think they want even a little bit more than they usually have in that time. So Cora, after getting into it with the soldiers that were left behind to watch over the settlement, decides to go with Gunner to go get some other warriors and things, other capable people, and bring them back to their farm, their farm village, their settlement, to defend the people against the Mother World. That's pretty much the plot, really. It's just them going around and gathering other people, and it's more like a video game, really, than a movie. I know this is a part 1, but there's not much here, even though this is over 2 hours long. And yeah, it doesn't work, but we'll get more into that. Positives, I think there were some really good looking shots here. Like earlier on when she's out there farming, you get this red sky up there. Like that looks good. There's some nice visual stuff here. There's some different creatures and things. I think they look good. The CGI for the most part looks actually really good. And there's some interesting things here and there. Like when the villains first get to the settlement, and there's the whole back and forth thing with the leader of the settlement and Gunner, how they both want to do different things, but they both, at the end of the day, want to protect the people. And it's kind of tense, because something's going to happen. The villain is right there. And he's going to do something, but you don't really know what it's going to be. So there's some pretty good tension there. I thought that was a pretty good scene. I think all of the acting, for the most part, is either good or at least okay. I don't think Sophia Boutella really has that much presence, mainly as the main protagonist here. But she does okay, I think. And the other characters, they don't really have much to do, but what they have, I think they do a good job. This guy that plays the villain, Ed Skrein, he plays Noble. I thought he did a really good job. I think he probably gives the best performance here. He's really getting into it, I think. The character's like cartoonishly villainous. At one point, he's like fucking a squid or something like that. I don't know what's going on there, but the character at least did leave an impression on me, unlike most of the other characters here. That's it, really. I mean, it took me multiple times to get through this movie because it's boring as shit. There's not much plot here, and a lot of it is really heavy-handed exposition. I mean, when you're getting Cora's backstory, right, at least they're finally showing that in flashbacks at one point, but a lot of it was just talking. There's a lot of standing around and talking because there's not really much development of the characters or this world. There's not much world building. There's a gang ton of Star Wars. That's mainly what this is. I guess this started off as a Star Wars pitch. That's mainly what you see here. There's even a cantina scene where they go to meet the person that's going to end up taking them around. Charlie Hunnam's character, Kai, which is blatantly a Han Solo type of character, a rogue that's flirting with the idea of maybe joining the Resistance, even though he's mostly thinking about himself and his debts and things. Like he even has to go settle a debt or something. I mean, it turns into it turns out that he was betraying them, which was obvious by the time it showed up. But I was like, this is blatant here. You got all these aliens in this bar or whatever it is. It's obvious. There's a character that has two swords, and she's fighting with swords. I was like, okay, she's kind of cool with the swords. It's an action scene. I barely know her because you didn't develop her, but whatever. But then she turns them into lightsabers. I was like, okay, of course, lightsabers have to pop up at some point. It's just, there's a lot of Star Wars in here. I couldn't even get through all of it. There's some Dune in here. So when you get to Korra's backstory, this is a spoiler. When you get to Korra's backstory, right, she used to be part of, the Mother World and their forces or whatever. She was taken as a young girl by the general, like the main guy here. Taken as a young girl when they were sieging, where she was from, right? They were killing all the people or whatever, even killed her family. And then he saw something in her. So he then took her on as his daughter, turned her into a killing machine. Until she finally, turns on him and everything he's got going on. That is very clearly Thanos and Gamora from Infinity War. It is obvious. I mean, it even plays out in a similar way, other than Thanos only killed half the people because he had the whole thing, his whole ideology going on. But it plays out almost the same way. I was like, why are you blatantly aping from Infinity War right now? I mean, there's a lot. Like you can go through a list of so many things that this reminds you of that are so much better, and you could just turn this off and go watch those. It's even less storytelling than a video game would be, because like, yeah, you have these action scenes that go to different places and meet different people, talk to different people, and recruit people to their party or whatever. It's an RPG. But even in a video game, there would be more characterization for these characters. They pop up in a place. That's another derivative thing. One of the guys is a slave, and he has to train what is essentially Buckbeak from Harry Potter before he can be let go. They don't really say why he has that debt or why he's there, why the guy has the holdover or whatever. They don't really get into it fully, but I was like, what is this? But either way, after that, I don't think that character really speaks ever again. I think he might have a line at the end of the movie. Then you have this other lady. They just pop up and she's in an elevator with them, and then she goes to fight this monster lady that's been kidnapping children, right? They feel like little segments that belong somewhere else that don't really feel like they fit into the whole narrative there. But she fights that monster thing, right? It's a gang ton of slow-mo. This movie would be like 30 minutes shorter if it wasn't for all the slow-mo. I mean, there's slow-mo for characters dropping seeds when they're on the farm. It's like, god damn. But I was like, this is getting parody level at this point. I mean, god, the slow-mo takes away so much from these fight scenes, along with the fact that very clearly these fight scenes were supposed to be, rated R. There's supposed to be some blood or whatever, but there isn't any. It's a lot of cutaways. But she fights that monster lady, and then she's part of the team, and then doesn't speak again. Jimon Hansu, he got done dirty. He's probably the most recognizable face here, other than maybe Charlie Hunnam, maybe Sophia Botella, but one of the top billed in the cast. They go to get him. He's like a disgraced general or something like that, and he's all dirty, whatever. They give him a shower, and there's like a couple-minute conversation. He doesn't even get a full-on action scene like the other characters do to like introduce him. She has like a couple-minute conversation with him. He's on the team, right? Barely really had to persuade him or anything, and then he doesn't speak until the end of the movie, I'm pretty sure, right? You put together these characters, but you didn't have them interact after they become part of the group so that I can get invested in them as a team, right? They're just on the ship together, I guess. It's nonsense. It's just these characters, they're nothing. Like, they don't even care to develop them. So then when they get in these big fights, like at the climactic fight at the end, I don't give a shit. Ray Fisher plays one of the blood axes. I almost said Bloodstone. That's from that Marvel thing. But one of the blood axes, which is one of these two rebels, these rebel duo. I think they're brother and sister. So I thought he gave a pretty good performance, but we didn't really get to know him all that much, and he didn't really have leave much of an impression. So then later on, this is another spoiler, when he dies, I didn't care at all. They're in this big battle with all this stuff going on, and characters are dying, and I didn't care at all because you didn't develop them beforehand.
We barely produced 12,000 bushels. We'll starve to death. I don't understand what you want.
Oh, it's simple. I want everything.
The villains, I know that you're taking from Star Wars and some other stuff. Star Wars with this thing, right? We have the stormtroopers and things like that. Star Wars has been criticized for being simple, for being very black and white when it comes to good and evil, right? You have the light side and the dark side. I mean, it's very simple, but I could say, people have said it's, I guess, brilliant in its simplicity or whatever. It just does everything so well, at least the original trilogy. Well, these villains, yes, we have it black and white, but we have it completely black and white. I mean, these villains are like despicable. Like, they just go around killing people. The king is believed, one of these kings is believed to be helping the Blood Axes out. They kill that king, destroy his kingdom, mostly off screen, and then he's just begging for his life or whatever. It's like, God damn, this is a king. And then, with the settlement itself, you just pulled up to the settlement and was like, we're taking all your harvest, right? Oh, you have a really, bountiful place here that you could definitely harvest a lot of stuff from. Instead of, having some kind of partnership where we get a little bit from you or whatever, but you still get to make more. Maybe we can have a relationship going forward for longer. I'm going to take just enough, or too much really, so that your whole settlement just starves to death because we feel like it. Because, like Cora says, we take everything. We just destroy. That's all we do. And it's like, come on, man. But when they're at that settlement and those soldiers think nothing to just rape that girl, I was like, okay, you're going too far with this. So what do you have here? I mean, even the cinematography isn't good, right? I mean, that's one of the things I've praised him for, even with, the storytelling not working. I'm like, oh, his movies are they look great if you're into the muted colors and all that. But even the cinematography, like, there's this weird depth of field thing that he's doing, and I let him slide on that with Army of the Dead because that's a zombie movie, and it kind of makes you feel kind of isolated and kind of claustrophobic or whatever. I thought it was like an actual creative choice that mostly worked for me, even though that movie had problems. I mostly give it a pass. Here, there's points where two characters are talking to each other, they're both on the screen at the same time, and one of them's out of focus. The depth of field is crazy in this, especially like early on in the farm. It was to the point where I thought that there was something wrong with my Netflix. I was like, wow, is my Wi-Fi buffering or something? What's going on here? I can't see. But like, there'll be like one thing that's in focus, and everything else is just really, really out of focus and blurry, and it was really getting on my nerves. There's even though I like the red sky and things like that, some of it really works and the CGI works, but there are definitely points where it's like that in the distance, that stuff out there, that's clearly not out there, right? There's a point where they were at a campfire, Gunnar and Cora, and they're sitting at the campfire, and it's so obvious that they are like isolated from everything around them, just on that little patch of land. It is so obvious that everything around them is clearly not in the distance. It's not there. And there's definitely points like that in here that took me out of it. And I can't say enough. This slow-mo is too much. It's too much. There's too much slow-mo in this thing. All right, it takes away from the action. I mean, they can't do anything without there being slow-mo. There's a point in the flashback where she holds up a flag. There's a bunch of slow-mo in that. It just, every action has to be, in slow-mo. And even action that, like I said, putting down seeds on farmland. It's slow-mo for some reason. It's just weird. But yeah, I don't understand, man. When you have such bad storytelling like this, when you just completely disregard like obvious things for storytelling, like character development, like actual world building, instead of standing around having boring ass conversations all over and over again because you can't bother to actually fully develop what's going on here for your audience. I don't understand how there's so many people who just like live and die by this guy. I don't get it. I really don't get the fascination. But whatever, he's made some good movies that I like, but anyway. I give a pass to Army of the Dead because I like the third act, but I'm not giving a pass to this one. I'm giving it trash, and I could almost be persuaded to give it lower, to give it my lowest rating, but I won't do that. I'm giving it trash. I think this is one of the worst movies he's made, I think, because it's not a movie, barely, right? It's an RPG and a bad one at that, a video game. So There it is. That's Rebel Moon. What's the whole title again? Child of Prophecy or some nonsense. Rebel Moon Part 1, A Child of Fire. And yeah, not good. Definitely not good. You got to really kill it with this part 2 if you really want this to be a full-on franchise like this. Your own version of, Star Wars, Zach Wars, or whatever. Because this is not it, bruh. This really isn't it. This is actually really bad. This was really hard to sit through. So yeah, that's it. That's Rebel Moon Part 1. We're done.